It's time for Let's Make a Deal. Now here's TV's big dealer, Wayne Brady.
What's up, America? Welcome to Let's Make a Deal. I'm Wayne Brady. Thank you so much for tuning in. Who wants to make a deal? Let's go. Let's see. You.
Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Kellam. Welcome to Encounter. As we record this program, we're in Lent, the 40-day period of spiritual preparation for the new life that awaits us at Easter time. And during the Lenten period over the past several years, I've tried to do some sort of writing activity just for self-expression. Some of it's kind of autobiographical, some of it's exhortative. I don't even know what that word means. And this past year, I was stuck for a topic. I thought, what am I going to write about each day during Lent? And we're talking a couple of hours in the morning. And so I went to get a cup of coffee, and I went and got a mug out of the Kellam kitchen cupboard, those alliterative mugs. And this one says, "Jazz belongs in church." And I thought, I wonder, maybe I should write about a mug every day. How many mugs are there up there? And it was probably a mug for every day in Lent. Let's not go into the therapy it's going to take to wonder why I have 40 mugs. And jazz belongs in church. So what would I write about? Well, I wrote about improvisation, that life is improvisation. So for 2 hours and 1,200 words or so. And so every day during Lent I've been writing. Now, is that crazy? That's quirky. Is it brilliant? To find out where I am on that scale, I've invited Yvonne Lucia to be with us, who your major in your vocation these days is called soul tending.
Yes.
Yvonne Lucia, is what I'm doing soul tending?
Well,
writing?
I was going to say, I latched onto your prompt of using a mug as a writing prompt as being absolutely brilliant. And I would have to say that, yes, anything that we do that invites self-reflection is soul tending. And It sounds to me like that's what you're about in your writing process.
Yeah. And how would you have defined soul tending? Maybe we ought to start with the soul.
Right.
Are we talking about spirit, self?
Well, soul is one of those very elusive terms. In fact, Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets, says that nobody knows what the soul is. It comes and goes like wind over water. And so trying to really define soul with linear language is very difficult.
Yeah.
The way we understand soul, the way I understand soul, is through metaphor.
Yeah.
And so although people have tried to define it, for example, Parker Palmer, who's a well-known Quaker writer and theologian, says he calls the soul our hidden wholeness. And again, the word hidden is very key because the soul is something that is very difficult to define, nail down, and give a strict definition to. This John O'Donohue, another one of my favorite writers, says that the soul is a shy friend. So all of these ways of describing the soul kind of hint at its elusiveness.
Yeah.
And another analogy I like to use is of the moon. The moon reflects light, and the moonlight is much softer than the light of the sun. So there's also, again, this sense of something that's subtle. And the moon also is mysterious, and the moon shifts and changes. It's always there in its
going
whole
through phases.
It's all right. It's always there in its wholeness, but parts of it are hidden, parts of it are full, and the moon cycles through its phases in its own time. We can't make it appear more whole than it is at any given time. So those are hints about how our soul functions.
Yeah.
Our soul, I guess, to really, if you want to define it or say what is the purpose of soul or what is its function, the soul, as I understand it, is our deepest core essence. It's that thing that makes you Jeff Kellam. It's the thing that makes me Yvonne Lucia. It's that just unique, individual, but absolutely core sense of who we are in our inmost being.
Going back, it was Mary Oliver who talked about the wind over the water.
Right.
And see, that wind metaphor is the word for spirit.
Right.
Is wind or breath. And so that would fit that very nicely.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned spirit, because that's one thing I would like to kind of make a definition or a distinction between the concept of soul and spirit, because people often conflate the two terms and use them interchangeably.
Yes.
So the way I've come to understand the difference between soul and spirit there are two aspects of self. Soul for me is what is embodied. It's physical, it's color, it's art, it's music, it's the things that are incarnational. Spirit is that which is transcendent, which is, we have the sense of needing to ascend to spirit. It's higher than we are, it's beyond and above what we are. And each of these are two sides of one coin. A lot of sort of pop theology or pop spirituality to me really focuses more on spirit and the ascendant. Like, I'm going to ascend, I'm going to attain enlightenment, I'm going to attain nirvana. So it's sort of a sense of leaving the earth and the body behind. Soul, on the other hand, for me is the downward movement, the descent into the flesh and into the beauty of life.
You remember soul music,
right?
Soul music was that flesh and blood depth to the human. Well,
right.
I almost said human spirit, but soul music was from the African American community. I think music that was earthy.
Exactly. It's that which is most human.
Yeah. It's funny because this just occurred to me now, despite my hours of preparation for our interview, that my first theme song on the radio for my radio show was Soul Coaxin' by Raymond Lefevre. And soul coaxing, I think it was picking up on that soul music thing perhaps, but soul tending, this is taking care of the soul.
Exactly.
And I understand from reading on your website and looking at some of your literature that a lot of this has to do with using our bodies in the discipline of drawing or writing or shaping, or can you describe kind of?
Right. Again, I guess the word that I use that sort of connects with theology is incarnational.
Yeah.
That all those things that make us most fully human, art, music, poetry, also, there are things that, again, can't be like nailed down into a formula. These are all disciplines or activities that are evocative. They evoke things that we can't fully describe or articulate by suggesting through image and through metaphor. And so the soul loves metaphor. The soul speaks in metaphor, in image. And in terms of what does it mean to tend the soul, I very carefully chose that word because it has a sense of gentleness about it. And if you think about tending a garden, for example, when we tend a garden, we're there in a supportive role.
Yeah.
We plant the seeds, we water them, we fertilize them, we prune them when necessary. We provide a trellis or a support for them to lean on when they're tenderly growing. So the notion of soul tending has that aspect to it. It's the work of listening to another person's story and being there in a truly supportive role without any kind of bringing advice or trying to fix problems. It's really being a gardener of someone's soul, and just like a seed for a particular plant is going to grow into, for example, a sunflower is not going to become a lily.
Yeah.
So a Jeff Kellam is not going to become
a Lily Tomlin.
Okay, or whatever.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
to extend the analogy, as a person who tends soul with others, I see my work as just watering the soil that is already Jeff, that's already there, and just encouraging and calling forth the Jeffness that you want to bloom into. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think the tenderness and being gentle is different than digging in a row to plant things in, and this I love this analogy of tending a garden, for example. You have you were a nurse, and you were explaining why you went to seminary to get your Master of Divinity degree. That might be interesting to follow through on, that you were tending to people's bodies physically, but you felt another bond there.
Right, yes. In my nursing work, I found that I was very much in tune with the sense I had that people were really suffering and struggling with the big questions of life. Why did this happen to me? And in my nursing role and the tasks I had to do, I didn't have time to, and that wasn't my job description to work. So I actually really became the liaison between the chaplain's office and the hospital I was working with. I was constantly calling on the chaplains. And I discovered that for me, that was where the juice was for me, to really grapple with those kinds of questions. So I decided to go to divinity school to pursue becoming a hospital chaplain. And along the way, that plan kind of got derailed for various reasons, but I've always been a person in my own life who has reflected on the events of life and what do they mean, and just deeply grappling with the bigger questions. And so ultimately the work I'm doing now feels like it's taken me back to that initial
And most of us go through our days, I assume, rather routinely. There's breakfast, and there's going off to work, and there's coming home, and there's watching some TV and going to bed and getting up in the morning. And it's those events in our lives that kind of interrupt, that bring up those questions. The sudden illness, for example, finding ourselves in the emergency room, or some disagreement or something we've had with somebody. Suddenly, we begin to ask the deeper questions. So when folks come to you, where do you know where to start?
I start with wherever the person is.
Okay.
Start with where they are, and really what I do is offer my presence and bring curiosity to whatever they're grappling with. Most of what I do is ask open-ended questions just to invite a deeper exploration. I have a deeply embedded natural curiosity about people, so I think it's partly that. I'm just very curious about people and what makes them tick, and how do they respond to things, and why, and is there another way maybe that they could look. So that's the type of thing that I bring into the work.
Another term that occurs to me after seeing your website and glancing at the brochure is art therapy. Is that a part of your training? Is that a part of what you do with folks?
Okay, well, I have to be very clear with people that I am not a licensed art therapist. That's a very particular discipline in the counseling field. which does use art modalities in treatment. However, that being said, my bias is that we are all creative beings. Being creative is through drawing, painting, dance, writing poetry, writing essays. It's a natural part of being human, and that's what I invite and encourage for all the people that I work with.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to be in touch with our soul in a way that the linear mind doesn't allow us to go, because of the metaphor and the imagery.
Yeah.
If you can think of, I try to invite people that I work with to think about during your day. Think about something that you saw. It could be something as banal as a TV commercial. Think of a song that came on and a line just got your attention, or something you read in the paper that there may be a sentence that leaps off the page at you. Those are clues from the soul. That's the call of the soul, trying to get your attention, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of working with artistic modalities of any kind, because there's a wonderful quote from Meister Eckhart, who's a mystic from, I believe, the 13th century. He says, "When the soul wishes to experience herself, she throws an image of herself out in front of her and then enters into her own image." If you want to sit and think about that for a while,
Right.
That's how I run my life.
Yeah.
I have to say. It's like little breadcrumbs, little hints along the way of our soul is calling us always to become whole. WHOLE. And these are the clues, but guess what? We have to pay attention.
Yes, yes. And there's a lot of distractions
Right.
that we face day by day in our routine lives. One of my favorite quotations is from Irenaeus, who said that the glory of God is humanity, or human beings, fully alive. And that fully alive part is troubling because most of us, I'm not sure, are fully alive.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I was thinking of that quote on the way over here, and I'm glad you said it, because I thought it was from St. Anselm. I would have embarrassed myself. So but that quote is truly another way of summing up the work that I do, because the intention of the work is to invite people to become fully alive. And there's a notion sometimes among people that, well, if I spend all this time thinking about myself and working on myself, that's selfish.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that we find